Hello, everyone. Welcome to more Political Excess. Today, let's take a look at the favorability rating of Vice President Kamala Harris. So let's get right on Real Clear Politics and take a look at the polls. Now, one thing to note is there's not a ton of polls. This type of polling comes out way less than for President Biden. And a lot of people might not even be familiar with the role of the vice president. But having said all that, let's see what we've got here. In the aggregate, she is at a 37% favorable rating, 52% unfavorable. That is a negative 15.2% spread. Every one of these is in the negative. Things are not looking good for Kamala Harris. Usually, these ratings would be closely tied into the president's ratings, so it's not really that much of a surprise. But for some comparison, let's take a look at the last vice president, Mike Pence, to see where he was at. There's not a huge supply of polls, but in the aggregate, Mike Pence was at 38.8% favorable, 48.3% unfavorable, 9.5% in the red. So those ratings are also negative, a little bit less negative than Harris's. So let's get on to civics and see what they say there. And on civics, it shows Harris with a 57% unfavorable, 34% favorable, for a 23% negative margin. And if we look at the graph, we can see it's been underwater actually from the very beginning, but the beginning of this graph actually goes back to January of 2018. So that part might be a little bit surprising that she's never been positive, at least according to civics. If we compare that to Mike Pence on civics, we could see Mike Pence was actually worse here with a 59% unfavorable and a 24% favorable. And that rating is actually current into July. It's been very stagnant the last year and a half, but his civics ratings are definitely worse than Harris's. On Real Clear Politics, it's the other way around. Usually when somebody's out of office, the ratings are not as bad as they were because they're less of a threat. But Mike Pence here, he is actually lower than I thought he would be. So if we want more context, we could take a look at this Pew Research article. And this looks at Kamala Harris internationally, and it asks the question if she would do the right thing regarding world affairs. So it's a little bit different kind of a question, but there it's decidedly positive, with a 55% confidence rating and a 33% no confidence rating. And you can see her best country there, for whatever reason, is Sweden, and her worst country is Hungary. And this article goes on to discuss gender and age, and how that factors into her favorability rating. And it also mentions that it's usually tied in with the president's approval rating. And again, that does make sense. But the key thing to remember is this is not approve or disapprove. It's would they do the right thing regarding world affairs. So although Biden and Harris are not liked here back at home, internationally, there is empirical evidence here that indicates other countries do have confidence in them. Aside from the objective data, my own subjective view is, yeah, I've seen plenty of clips of her laughing inappropriately, repeating the same words over and over, giving non-answers, and other clips designed to cast her in a negative light. And to me, that's definitely fair game. That's what we always did for the people in elected office. Usually we highlight their bad moments. That shouldn't be the only thing you focus on, but it should definitely get some attention, and there's nothing wrong with pointing it out. I do think her disposition is worse than Mike Pence, how he conducted himself in office, and I'm trying to separate out all of the policy because I know that'll cloud anybody's judgment. I think the bigger problem is how this becomes more of a taboo topic, trying to criticize her. Which brings me to the last news article here, which goes into detail on her approval rating. And it talks about how she has a 41% favorable rating amongst registered voters. And above it, it does go into her identity. And that is the thing that is most off-putting for me. Much of the defense of criticism directed at her does tend to be shielded behind her identity, and I think that is a complete cop-out. It tries to make you immune from criticism So many people, including much of the media, were brutal to Donald Trump, even about his appearance. They did the same to George Bush. They even did a little bit to Joe Biden when he was vice president. So to see a retreat into identity whenever there's a legitimate criticism, strongly against that. It's completely counterproductive, and I think most Americans do see that, and they're also tired of it. So you can read this article, but down here it does compare Harris to previous vice presidents. We could see that Harris is definitely lower than the four most recent, going back to Al Gore. And down here, this shows that she is even a little bit under Joe Biden. And then down here, here's your cross tabs on your demographics. It's mostly what you'd expect and pretty consistent. Postgraduates, a little bit more supportive of her. Democrats overwhelmingly support her. Black voters, they also support her by a large margin. So I'll just scroll through the rest of this, and of course the link will be down below if you want to read any of this. I think there's plenty to criticize her on in terms of her character, in terms of her policies. It is unfortunate that some people do have an emotional reaction to hearing criticism about her, and then everything completely veers off course. There's always going to be the extremes that people focus on to try to act like that's the mainstream. But if I did that with all the people that criticized me or hated me in my life, that would be an unfair characterization. The bottom line is, separate out the identity from whether you like her or dislike her, and then freely state your opinion. It's as simple as that. But that's a comprehensive look at where Kamala Harris stands in terms of her favorability, in terms of her image. What do you think about this topic? Do you support her? Do you not like her? Do you care at all? Let me know what you think about this topic down below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.